wanted to show off a few things that I'm working on here. Primarily which are updates to Project Marcia. This one, part of a big update I've got coming in soon. This room is just a stand-in. I've actually got another arena that is a lot more interesting. The only reason I'm not using that right now is just it's causing some weird spawn issues. Every time something spawns in, one, they don't like to come at me. They wander around. They walk into walls, and they don't target me, and they start infighting immediately, and it's really weird. I don't know why. See, these guys are doing fine. They're walking around at me. But what I wanted to show off in this video quickly was the det charge I've been working on. And I can show you the code after I look at this. But the idea is I wanted something you could drop on the ground and then detonate remotely whenever you wanted to. Which, if you've ever tried to do that in SnapMap, you'd think, aside from a prefabricated press X to spawn a bomb here, wouldn't really be, is at least difficult, if not possible, not impossible. So here it is. Boom. Now I can show you how I did that, because if you ever try to do it, you recognize how ridiculous and wonky the logic is. I don't know why this guy's just standing here. And if you don't know why this is, at least in my experience, impressive, that means you either have a much better solution already, in which case please tell us. Ooh, I think I forgot to change that. I made a mistake. If I walk into that, I think I die. I think I forgot to make sure it filtered me out. Whoops. We'll see. Yeah, I think I have it set to only damage me instead of all AI. I think I toggled it one too many. We'll see. But, so again, the idea is I can drop it, and then whenever I want to, whenever someone gets near it, I can just set it off. Now you'll see the explosion I have in there, the pipes, not the pipes, but the barrels. It's unfortunate that I have to do it that way where you can see them for a second, but that just seems to be the only way that SnapMap will let me do it. And I know if Telepoopy's watching, he's going to say, well, just use the order of execution trick to make sure that the barrel spawns before the explode signal is sent. I have tried that, and for whatever reason, when it comes to explosive barrels, that does not work. They have to actually be sitting there for a second before they will explode. If I do that, it just pops into existence and just stays there until I shoot it, which is obnoxious. So where the hell was, here it is. So the way that I did this, this is the whole code for it. Is this a separate piece? Yeah, so actually what I'm going to do really quickly here is do what I should have done a second ago. Please scroll. Why does it take so long to load these? There's actually nothing in there. So what I'm going to do is actually move these in here to make it easier to see. Blue. Alright. So the idea behind this code is, and I wish it was a little prettier, sorry about that. So I've got my input, I put it on equipment, because that made the most sense to me. And when you signal it, it's going to start a sequencer. It's going to signal a sequencer. So if the first time you do it, it'll go this route, as long as you are the correct cached object, which is just a filter for other players. Then on the one hand, shows the objective saying, actually no, it hides the objective saying that charge is ready, I'm dumb. It'll start the recharge timer, but the most important thing, or the trick is it spawns a hazard that hurts players for 1 damage. I wish I could make that 0.1 or something, but that's not how that works. So it only hurts players, and I made it the least obtrusive hazard I could find. You can barely even see this thing sometimes. So that might seem like a strange way of doing things, and there might even be another way of doing it, but as far as I've found, the only way to have something appear in somewhere that you have left, like a position you've been to and left later on, without rigging up a bunch of, like a grid with a bunch of usable objects or something, which would be like usable volumes, which would just be ridiculously resource intensive and make the map impossible to edit. It would just be a nightmare. Is to transfer essentially the activator to a hazard. So I spawn this hazard on you, I have it do 1 damage. I wish there was a way to not have it do that, but this is the only way I've found after extensive testing. Cue somebody else swooping in and saying, oh, you can just do this. Maybe there's a way. This is the only way that I found. It's one of the little hacks that I've used. Anyway, so on caused damage, I have it start a repeater, and this is the tricky thing. Because what this repeater is going to do is continuously send a signal until this Boolean allows the signal to continue. So it's just thumping a signal against that Boolean filter with nothing happening because it can't pass the filter until you turn this true. Now, the way you do that is by triggering this sequencer a second time. So when you signal the sequencer this time, and make sure you've got it set to run out 1 output per signal, then as long as you're the right guy, of course, then it'll set this to true, which means the next signal which comes through 1/3 of a second later, and you can do it faster, I just don't like doing that, will signal all this stuff. That turns this back false again, so you can redo the whole sequence. That stops the repeater. That spawns these explosions, and I've layered a bunch. I got a barrel explosion, I've got a large explosion, and you get the idea. I even have these embers, and there was my problem. There we go. Now, the problem here is that why these aren't enough to do anything is apparently if you spawn an explosion, like if I spawn a barrel explosion or a accumulator explosion on an AI, the only thing that's going to take damage is that one AI. It doesn't matter how close anything else is to it. If you try to spawn an accumulator explosion on top of the player, the only thing that can be affected is the player. It's really dumb, but it's like that activator just eats everything that hazard does. Why it is that way, I have no damn idea. But it is. So it doesn't matter how big of an explosion you put on there. It doesn't matter how large it is. It doesn't matter if you were hugging something. It will do absolutely nothing to anything but the actual target. And that happens here as well. But here's the other problem. It looks to be that if you spawn... you have a similar problem if you spawn them on a hazard. Because now the hazard is the activator. Which wasn't clear. That's why this spawning spawns it where this was left, as opposed to spawning it on the player's current position, because I've handed it off to this thing. Also, it's when I had that cause damage is when I dropped the core, if you're curious about how I made it, got that look as though things were going on. I think I made it where it's a filter, where nobody can pick it up. Yeah, I said only AI can pick it up, which doesn't actually do anything, because they can't. I wish they could, because I would love to be able to basically give them a bomb, but that's not how it works. I also noticed I had that same repeater signaling the, that little thing. Oh, it's not supposed to be there. Anyway. Now, the only way to make it actually damage things, then, is by spawning objects, which, by the way, barrels are weird. They are the only object you can spawn, at a location, aside from from a demon or a player. The only thing you can say, hey, spawn that here, that's not a hazard. The only physical, in our mental sense, the only physical object, the only prop, essentially, you can spawn somewhere is a barrel. You imagine if we could spawn other things, that'd be nuts, but unfortunately you cannot. So, you spawn that there, and I set them to 0.1 seconds later, explode. Now again, what I've tried to do was have it where, so I hit this, I tried to make it where explode comes after spawn object and have no delay here, so that in theory, those exist, and then immediately the next signal that was received is to blow them up. Unfortunately, with barrels, that does not seem to work. Unless I've gone crazy and got, like, when I double-checked my work, I was wrong every single time, it just doesn't apply to barrels, which is really obnoxious. Just because of the way they operate, I guess. Why do I have these show on start? doesn't really matter, but I guess they're chilling here at the beginning. Whatever. um, yeah, and that's how that works. Now, unfortunately, a barrel has a good explosion. They deal a good bit of damage, but it's comparatively small. So the dead charge has to be like right next to them to do anything. And this is also a lot of damage. It might even be too much. I might tune that down later on for this particular class, especially given the cooldown. But I'm trying to use this large embers as a way to get around and actually have a large AoE, and so far it has not worked. It looks like it can hurt you, but not AI. Why that is, I haven't the foggiest. Now, one thing I'm going to confess at the end there, I'm not sure exactly what happened, is I spawned 3 of those, and then after that, I couldn't make them happen again. My guess is that it's got something to do with me getting unlucky on this repeater, somehow sending a signal at the wrong time, and things getting caught where it's both false and then can't, I don't know, where it breaks this sequencing somehow. I haven't thought about it too much harder. I had it happen to me once before, so this might not be the most reliable thing yet. I'm sure there's some other extra something I can work in here to make sure it is reliable, but that's the idea. So if you want to spawn things like explosions elsewhere, with a delay essentially, or on demand, you've got to use this little trick where you've got a hazard that you transfer ownership of the activator signal to, and then you put that, you release it however you want. Again, like this, all I had was just, I had this signal just buffering in against this filter, able to do nothing until the filter is changed. Yeah, so that's that. I hope this was useful. You guys might be able to use it, and I hope you guys are excited to try this out in Project Hamartia, including the latest stage in Project Hamartia's life, which you'll hear more about soon.